Oh, can you guys mute yourselves? Oh, of course. Hi, and welcome to Off Chain with Jimmy Song. I have oh, okay. So anyway, I have a couple of very special guests that are going to talk about the Hurricane Irma stuff, and afterwards we'll get into some discussions. But yeah, let's get to the Hurricane Irma donation stuff from the cryptocurrency community. I think this will be very interesting. And who should we go to first? Marguerite, you want to go first?
Sure.
All right.
Hi, guys. Thanks, Jimmy, for having us on your show. And can I just ask a quick question? Did your wife get the kitchen yet?
Not yet, not yet. We're looking into it. We're working on getting some bids and things like that. It takes forever, these things. So I don't think anything's happening for another 6 months.
All right. When we were at the kitchen, because Bitcoin was just going on a bull run, but but yeah, so we just launched this Hurricane Irma campaign, the fundraiser, and we started working on it, I think, about 5 days ago, and the team just threw together this website and we partnered up with Bittrex. So any cryptocurrency can go towards this cause, and then we are putting that directly to the Center of Disaster Philanthropy, and then Direct Relief and Habitat for Humanity. So I haven't heard of a different campaign going on right now for Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency. Bittrex is the escrow, so they're holding all the funds, and when the campaign is over on the 19th, then those funds are going 100% to those 3 different groups that are right now boots on the ground, working to help these people that have just had their lives turned upside down.
Yeah, and we also have joining us the CEO of Pinkcoin, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you introduce yourself, Danny? You're gonna have to unmute yourself first.
Yeah. So I'm the founder of Pinkcoin. My name is Danny Johnson. You may know me as Crypto Casey. So as Margarita just mentioned, that we have started a disaster relief campaign to help those that are affected by Hurricane Irma. The website is relief.with.pink, and you can donate with any cryptocurrency that is traded on Bittrex. Bittrex was acting as the escrow on our behalf. And we just think that we have a good platform to allow people to fund these causes that are large world issues that maybe aren't being put at the forefront in the crypto community. So we are using our platform and our technology to help fund these causes, and along with funding the donations to these 3 great charities, we're incentivizing donors to the largest single donor, Calling Crypto, has donated a lifetime membership to the Gambit Trading Group, which is absolutely priceless. The group is literally closed. You can't buy in if you wanted to. In addition to the lifetime membership of Gambit Trading Group, he's contributed an hour of his time for one-on-one coaching for the largest donor. Additionally, to the largest community donation, which right now Pinkcoin community is destroying the competition. You, Jimmy Song, have been so gracious in allowing the development team of the single largest community donation to come on your show in the future, next week or beyond, to showcase their platform, to shill their coin, more or less. And on top of that, we have actually just today, Crypto Graffiti has given us a limited edition piece of art that we're going to give to a random donator. So you don't have to be the largest donator. You can be any donator. You can have donated to any single amount and be eligible for a prize. As well as us, the Pinkcoin community, we're going to be giving away 5 different Pinkcoin swag bags from shop.with.pink to random donators that have contributed at all. So you can donate and win some cool prizes in the process. So it's not just about winning something for yourself, but it's about contributing to those who need it. And we just feel like we have a good platform to do that. And our partnership with Bittrex in being the escrow is helping alleviate any concern that it's not going to go to the end user and that it's going to be, you're going to get scammed. Bittrex is literally holding all the funds. We have access to none of the wallet. We just have API keys to read the transactions and the balances. So there is 1,000% certainty that the funds are going to go to a good cause.
And what crypto coins can people use to donate?
Yeah, so legitimately any coin that is traded on Bittrex.com. So if you want to contribute Ethereum or Zcash or Monero or Blackcoin or I guess Evergreen Coin just gave us a donation today. Decred, any of your favorite altcoins, you can contribute them to relief.with.pink, and you can either donate anonymously by pressing the donate now button, or you can sign up for an account, which is literally only giving your email so we can track you, giving a ID or a nickname so that you can be publicly broadcast, and a password so that you may claim the prizes if you are eligible for prizes.
So they can
so there's
donate
a wide range
anonymously?
we're getting. They can if they so desire. However, if they want to be eligible for prizes, they need to register and include their email addresses. There's no invasive questions. There's no what's your name, what's your address, none of that. Just give us an email, give us a password so you can log in and click donate now, and that's it.
Okay. And Marguerite, which causes are the donations going to go to?
So we have the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, Habitat for Humanity, and then Direct Relief.
Okay.
So
and are you going to make a puzzle or anything interesting?
Oh man, well, I'm actually already working on a puzzle, but not for this. No, but I've been really excited. I mean, the community that stepped up and put items forward to incentivize donations has been really awesome. I mean, it's awesome. Yeah, Cryptography, I think he just tweeted out that art piece. So if you guys want to see it, it's on his Twitter, and he has details about it. And actually, I have his artwork right behind me, so it's awesome. It is just like one of these pieces, except it's a different print. But I mean, his work is going to be really valuable one day, guys.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it a limited edition of 25, and it's Bitcoin on a Federal Reserve bag?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just real quick shout out, the Twitter handles of the organization we're going to be donating to is at habitat_org, at funds for the number 4 disaster, and at direct relief.
Mm-hmm.
Want to check those out.
Okay, and you guys can follow both of these guys. Marguerite is Coin Artist on Twitter, and Danny is, I guess, Pinkcoin Official or Pinkcoin _ or something like that on Twitter.
_, also Crypto Casey, and
okay.
Marguerite's Coin _artist.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully, you guys can donate and show. You know, I guess if you have some extra Bitcoin Cash or something like that, maybe you might want to donate it, but convert it to Bitcoin or some other altcoin first, whatever coin that you want to see on the show. So
Bittrex. So you don't have the developers on your show?
Yeah. So whoever's developers you want me to interview, I guess it could be Bitcoin Cash if you want, like,
if you wanted to.
Metal Mix on here. We can certainly try to get him and things like that. So yeah, entirely up to you. It does look like Pinkcoin is winning by a mile. Yeah, last time I checked, I think it's let's see. I am going to
over $10,000.
Yeah, the total number of donations right now is $11,555 US.
And
under 48 hours.
Everything but about $1,000 of that is from Pink. So yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have like Danny on again or something if this holds. So
that we have the most generous and kind community out there.
I think that shots fired. Obviously. All right.
Open challenge to any crypto. Please beat us. We welcome it. It's all going to a good cause.
All right, good stuff. Thank you guys. I really hope this goes well, and I implore this community. I mean, there are a lot of people that are going to be displaced as a result of this, so I'm sure any donation to any of these worthy organizations would be very useful. Yeah, yeah. Thank you
Thank you very
having
much,
me.
Junior, for having us on.
Thank
We
you,
appreciate
Jimmy.
you
right.
elevating us on your platform.
Yeah, no problem. Bye.
Bye.
All right, they have dropped off. All right, great. Now, I really do think it's going to be a good thing for everyone if if we can show that Bitcoin and other crypto can donate to these things. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about breaking Bitcoin. Obviously, I spoke there and I moderated a panel, but probably what everyone wants to talk about is what happened with JJ. For those of you not in the know, what happened was JJ. He's the creator of Bitcoin. He works at Purse.io. He gave a presentation where he showed an exploit for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, probably a ton of other altcoins. But yeah, it's a very interesting exploit. I found it very technically interesting. But he had sort of disclosed it to Peter Wolla and I guess Dedalnix and a bunch of other people, including Roast Beef, for different implementations and stuff like that, because they were vulnerable to this particular exploit that he found. And Elizabeth Stark and Peter Todd were quite annoyed. Well, probably angry. I think angry is a fair word at what he had done, because though he had revealed it to the various people, the actual clients hadn't fully incorporated them. So, for example, it turns out that some of the efficiency gains from per TX output storage of UTXOs that Peter Wolla had done for 0.1.15.0 would actually fix this stuff. But 0.15.0 isn't out yet, and JJ had revealed this on Sunday. So Peter Todd was especially concerned, and he asked him several times about, did you tell everybody that you were going to reveal it today? And JJ sort of said, well, I revealed the stuff to them 2 months ago, so a few months ago, so that's kind of good enough. As Elizabeth Stark has asserted that he told her that he wouldn't speak about this particular thing. I haven't gotten the story from JJ yet, so I don't know if it's miscommunication or if something else happened and he was purposefully sort of revealing this thing. But let's get into a little bit about what the actual exploit was. Essentially, what he did was take advantage of the fact that when you're spending from when you have a transaction, you have, first of all, inputs and outputs. And for every input, it's really an output of another transaction that hasn't been spent yet. It's called a unspent transaction output, or UTXO for short. And what Bitcoin had done before 0.15.0, that is everything before it, like including 0.14.2, is for every one of these UTXOs, it loads the entire transaction instead of just the UTXO. So if each transaction is part of an enormous transaction, it loads the enormous transaction and finds that particular UTXO and then loads it. So what JJ had done was he created a ton of these enormous transactions, and then created another enormous transaction with a lot of inputs that reference all these other transactions, and sort of bloating the memory. And normally most people's nodes don't have more than, say, like 8 gigabytes of memory. So if you can sort of bloat that to like 10 gigabytes, the entire thing crashes, because it's I don't think there's any disk swap or anything like that. So he found that as an exploit. Now it turns out since Bitcoin has a lot of different implementations, some implementations were not affected, but other ones were, including Bitcoin, Bitcoin, and I guess Bitcoin Cash, though that's a different chain. All of them were affected by this, and he had notified them and done sort of like this disclosure thing, but he didn't reveal to them, I guess, that he was going to reveal it on Sunday. So that's where Elizabeth and Peter got pretty upset. But essentially, everything is fixed as part of 0.15.0 because Peter Willa actually had been working on this before JJ even found this exploit. So it's such a general and useful upgrade to Bitcoin that it ends up just sort of rendering this exploit null because it's a per TX output. So each UTXO is stored on its own instead of like as part of a much larger transaction, most of which might be already spent. And like JJ kind of showed it. The thing about that exploit is that it does require a lot of transactions in order to work. And it's, he estimated how much it would cost. It would cost a lot of money because you need a lot of blockchain space in order to execute it. You need all these like giant transactions with a lot of outputs first in order to be able to execute it reasonably. And because Bitcoin already has sort of like 100K per transaction rule that's sort of soft forked in there, it won't get, I mean, it's not really a soft fork. Well, it is. Most nodes won't relay transactions that are bigger than 100 kilobytes. What ends up happening is that it's you have to store all of these transactions throughout a long period of time, and then you have like this mega transactions that's spending from each of these 100 kilobyte transactions and sort of maximizes the amount of memory needed. And it's a very expensive exploit, and to my knowledge, there aren't really good candidate transactions to be able to do that, and it'll cost the attacker a lot of money. So it isn't being on Bitcoin done on Bitcoin. Same for it looks like Bitcoin Cash, though fees are very, very small, and like they have much larger blocks and a lot more block space. This would be a lot easier to pull off on Bitcoin Cash. But this is something to consider. It's also interesting because pretty much every altcoin out there is also going to have to upgrade as well. They're going to have to figure this out because if you aren't sort of upgrading to a per TX output and you're sort of a clone of Bitcoin, well, you're going to have the same exact problem. These UTXOs are going to be really can be a part of really large transactions. So that can be a pretty big problem. And I wonder if there will be people just sort of for the lulls sort of doing that, because many of these altcoins have like almost no transaction fee, and you can do whatever it is that you want. As far as transactions, you can maximize the number of outputs basically on these like large transactions. And it will be interesting to see if people sort of bother using this exploit on coins that don't sort of heed this warning. We know, for example, that a lot of these coins have very little development going on, and this may be actually a great way to find out which ones aren't being updated. Is if somebody sort of does this exploit. But I mean, that said, this was sort of like the big kerfuffle going on during the Breaking Bitcoin conference. I thought like it was a really fun conference personally for me, the best one I've been at. I was at Construct 2017 earlier this year, and that was pretty fun for me. Except, I don't really care about Ethereum, so it was kind of like anytime something Ethereum related came up, I kind of went off to the side and just sort of hung out with other Bitcoin people and just talked about different Bitcoin things. But yeah, it was this one. Almost everything I wanted to go to, and almost everyone I talked to, it was very much on topic. There weren't people going, oh, have you heard about my latest ICO, or random companies that are sponsoring that frankly, I didn't really care about. So it was really good in that way. And I really didn't feel like there were any scams there, which is saying something, because you know, these other a lot of other conferences attract scams like crazy. So yeah, I was very happy about that. All right, let's go to some questions. Let's see. I am going to sort of. Man, I wish I had some help. someone to someone to talk about this. Wow, so many people come. Yeah, commenting on random stuff, not real questions. All right, let's go back to Twitter. I think I have a bunch of Twitter questions from my tweets earlier today. So let's go to those. Fee estimation. All right. All right. Where can we tune in? Obviously, right here. What are the top risks that scare you for real, and top risks perceived as real that you think aren't really that scary? I think the perceived risks are something like the 2x hard fork. I used to be scared of that, but I'm not that scared anymore. And part of that is based on what I talked about in my opening talk on at Breaking Bitcoin. And it's that I really believe that Bitcoin is anti-fragile. And it isn't anti-fragile because, there's some magical code in there or something. It's anti-fragile because we have a lot of developers, and that makes it anti-fragile. There's a lot of people that can respond and make the whole system better whenever there are actual attacks against it. And fork is sort of like this destabilizing thing a little bit, but in a way that makes it a whole lot better because you have to immunize against it, and the developers are really the ones that are immunizing it. And I'm not just talking about core developers, the wallet developers, the developers that are exchanges and payment processors. They're all sort of immunizing, and it's a good thing. I think that's kind of why we saw price rise when Bitcoin Cash forked. As far as what scares me for real. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to think what would cause Bitcoin to get worse. And I guess it would be maybe like stagnation, something like that. I think we saw that a little bit during maybe like the 2-year bear market. Part of that I think was because we actually didn't have that much drama, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but that may actually be the case. Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at some of this other stuff. Do you think the DOS vector disclosure was unethical? I mean, ethics is this weird topic. It kind of assumes sort of a common morality, and I'm not sure we have that in crypto. There's no like 10 commandments of crypto or something like that everyone's already signed with blood or something like that. I think I think there are standards. Did JJ follow them to the letter? Probably not. But was he within his rights to disclose it? Probably. I mean, you can condemn them all you want, but unless there's sort of a common morality that everyone agrees to, it's kind of hard to, or that JJ agreed to beforehand. It's kind of hard to condemn him for it. Now, if he, lied to Elizabeth Sark and said, "I'm not going to give this specific presentation," but he did, I think, you can condemn him for lying. But I mean, I don't know. Like it's hard to say something is unethical without knowing the actual moral system that we're talking about, and that's kind of a very philosophical discussion that we need to have in order to have a good answer to that question, if that makes sense. Anyway, great questions, Francis. I met him over the weekend, by the way, and I like him. All right, so what are the general principles, values, philosophies, goals, roadmaps you think most participants shared with near unanimity? I assume this is at Breaking Bitcoin. I definitely think there were a lot of general principles. I think a lot of people felt like, security and a more focused event like this was a lot better than maybe some of these other events where you just sort of bring in anybody and everybody that will pay, and that's I think kind of not good for anybody, right? Like if you're going to have an Ethereum summit, have an Ethereum summit, and if you're going to have a Bitcoin event, have a Bitcoin event. If you're going to have an ICO event, have an ICO event. I think that's a lot better because you're going to bring in the crowd that you can talk to. If I go to an event with all three, I mean, it's only like a third of the people that I'm going to be interested in talking with. So, I think you have to balance that very, like, you want a more focused event. I think more people will show up. I think a lot of organizers of conferences tend to be very scared that if they focus it too much, then all these other people that want to come aren't going to feel welcome. Well, yeah, but if you widen the net too much, then a lot of people that are focused on their project aren't going to want to come either. So I think there are pros and cons, but at least for me, that seemed to be a sentiment that a lot of people shared. Many have said, like myself, that it was like one of the more enjoyable Bitcoin conferences that they've been to, largely because the crowd was, was a bunch of people that I wanted to talk to, and not like, half the people I want to avoid, half the people I want to talk to, and that's a good thing. All right, let's see. What is 0.15? Yeah, good question. It's the latest release of Bitcoin, and that's coming out probably in the next couple of days. It's already been tagged on GitHub. I think they're doing the build process right now. And once they have signed packages and things like that, it will be under releases in the Bitcoin Core GitHub repository, and you'll be able to download it. If you can't wait, you can just compile from source. Not very hard, and it's already been tagged, so you don't have to worry about new things going in. That would be tag lag 0.15.1. So lots of really new, cool new features. Just a preview for you guys. John Newberry has some really cool articles that are going to be coming out about like some of the new features. He by the way had a great article on fee estimation and how Bitcoin Core does it. He's going to follow that up with sort of what 0.15 changes, and it's really clever how fee estimation is done already, but it's going to get even more clever with some more logic added in. All right, so let's look at some more questions. Let's see. I already answered that questions. Was there any discussion about the environmental issues regarding intense amount of electricity used to mine, maintain the blockchain? No, not really. I think that's just sort of, yeah, I don't agree with the premise that Bitcoin is using way too much electricity or something like that. If you look at almost any money system, they use more electricity than Bitcoin, and I'm going to assert that this is true of fiat, of gold, of almost anything else. And the costs are not readily apparent; they tend to be hidden. So if you have the fiat system, for example, there's all these banks and things that you have to set up in order to distribute money and hold money for people and create money in, like, not just like M1 money, but M2 money and things like that. And that is an enormous cost, right? Who's going to go build a building? Who's going to, pay the salaries of all these people? And who's going to make the computer systems and the bank vaults and all these other things that these banks need? Oh, they don't come for free, and they all need electricity too. And there's an entire industry that lives kind of off the fiat system that you don't really need in Bitcoin. And most people don't think about that because that's not a direct cost like electricity is in Bitcoin. But it's not really something that I think people really talk about. It's not really a security issue, though. I mean, maybe we could talk about how if you lose electricity on Earth in some way, maybe like I don't know, somebody can do some sort of attack that takes out an energy grid or something. That could be interesting, but nobody unfortunately talked about that. But yeah, I don't really agree with the premise of that question. All right. Will Core be ready to implement the proof of work change if needed? It's a good question. Well, what does needed really mean? And we did talk about this on the mining panel that I had, and I don't, you know, I don't know if there's like a really good reason. I suppose if you're attacked, then you can implement. You would need to implement the proof of work change to get out of that attack, and that would be a hard fork, and it would be, you know, massively destabilizing. But obviously that would require some sort of state actor getting some significant amount of mining hash power so that the current proof of work is rendered useless. Would that happen? Possibly. And what would the core devs do? Well, I know for a fact that Luke Dash Jr. had at one point created Kesak as the proof of work for Bitcoin Unlimited, I think it was. And he put that pull request in, and of course they closed it. They were like, we're not changing our proof of work. But it really wasn't that much code, and it's entirely possible to be, he has it in his back pocket and he can implement it very quickly. So, I don't think it would be very hard to do it. It would be sort of the testing around it that would probably take a while, but in sort of that emergency like situation, I think you do minimal testing or just enough testing to know that it's not going to completely break it, because it's kind of already broken if a state actor has something else, and as long as it's better than that, you sort of release it, and that's kind of how it would go. But as far as like core developers being ready, I would say that they would be pretty much ready. And depending on what sort of new hash function that they would choose, you know, I think could be done fairly quickly. How long does it take for new versions like 0.15.0 to be fully implemented? What do you think about Jay Garzik's adapting .15 to SegWit 2x? Well, all right, so fully implemented, I guess by that you mean sort of like being propagated along on the network, and that's entirely up to the user. You can download the 0.15.0 and run it if you want. You don't have to. You have no obligation to, and that's part of the system, is that there are nodes that are running really old software, and you have every right to do that. No one is forcing you to upgrade. So it could take something like 2 or 3 years. Now, given sort of the importance of 0.15.0, I suspect it's going to penetrate the market a lot faster than maybe some of the other releases, especially given some of the peering stuff and some of the dangers around, if 2x hard forks being connected to only 2x nodes, that would be kind of dangerous because you could be isolation attacked. But I fully implemented it. It takes a while. What do you think about Jay Garzik's adapting .15 to SegWit 2x? I think that's like the normal thing to do. I think he's doing a merge instead of a rebase. I would prefer a rebase because that's a lot easier because you have your diffs. But I mean, whatever. He's used to merges, and that'll probably be easier. I hope he does it fairly soon. I have heard that he's going to sort of take out some of the quote unquote poison pills, and we'll see that what exactly that. I imagine he means like taking out sort of the anti-peering stuff with respect to SegWit 2x nodes. But yeah, that's I hope he does. Like that'll make Bitcoin 2x, I guess, better. Will the 2x hard fork happen? I'm guessing yes. I'm going to guess yes. And that's because you really don't need more than a small amount of hash power to desire it in order for it to happen. Bitcoin Cash showed us that. And there are enough people that I think want 2x to happen for that to happen. Of course, it could be that some people think, hey, you know what, like 2x it doesn't have enough momentum, and it was supposed to be a single chain, and I'd rather just stick with the other thing if that's the case. That may happen too. I don't know. It's hard to say. I wouldn't bet on that prediction, but it's entirely possible. Where can we find links to donation sites? How many coins are there like Bcash that old BTC holders can split and sell? Well, I mean, it depends on the number of hard forks, obviously. The donation sites are relief.with.pink. Quick thoughts on JP Morgan's diamond. I mean, I don't think he knows what he's talking about, so I don't know. I don't really like to respond to people that don't know what they're talking about. It's kind of like arguing with a child or something. I've done that, and it's not. It generally tends to be not very productive if the other person in the conversation doesn't know what they're talking about, right? Like, and he can have his opinion. He's got every right to it. But until you demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, it's the criticism isn't really that. I don't know why people would listen. I guess it's because he's like the president of Morgan Stanley. But I don't know. I don't really give it a second thought. It's not like Morgan Stanley's a big part of the Bitcoin community or anything. I'd rather look at criticism from people that actually know what they're talking about. So yeah, I don't really care. All right, let's go to the chat a little bit and take a look at some of the comments there, or questions there. All right, let's see. Anyone? Well, there's no super chat, so it's kind of hard to read some of these. If I install a full node, do I get faster transactions? Like, I guess you're asking, will you get in a block faster? No, that's entirely dependent on your fees. Although I guess SPV wallets can have connectivity issues. So if you're running a full node, you might have better connectivity, but almost certainly not. No. Doesn't Bitmain make like 99% of ASIC chips? No, they make about 70. Bitfury and Canaan manufacture a lot of other ones. All right, so what other questions do we have here? That's not right. Jimmy, run a class in New York City. I'll look into that. How did Bitcoin first kick off after the white paper was released? Well, the Genesis block was created by Satoshi, and he had some data in there about, Chancellor does something or other. It was basically complaining about, the current fiat system. But that's how he kicked it off. You missed the super chat. I missed the super chat. All right, so I will keep scrolling up until I find the super chat. What is the consensus on how people feel about leaking that weakness about BTC? Well, there isn't a consensus, I imagine. I mean, there's plenty of people complaining about it on Reddit and Twitter or whatever, but I mean, I don't think there's a consensus, much like most things on in Bitcoin. It's everyone's opinion. You have your right, the right to your opinion. Yeah, I don't think there's really any consensus at all. All right, I had asked on Twitter how banning limiting caching in BTC to CNY will affect miners in China. I don't think I understand that question. I'm sorry. Let's see. Does the UTXO bug cause any issues with the potential double spend or anything of that nature? Absolutely not. It's not really a bug. It's just the way that it was implemented. And one of the cool things, by the way, in JJ's talk was he made a distinction between implementation bugs and protocol bugs. And I was trying to write a good article about it, except I couldn't think of really good examples other than the ones he cited. So, it's a very interesting and useful distinction, I think, going forward. Will 7 nanometer chips, like from Japan Samsung, shift the power of ASIC mining away from Bitmain? Great question. So current generation is like 16 nanometer. I think Bitfury may be on 14 nanometer, but the next generation is 7 nanometer. And if you don't know that much about chip design, know that the smaller the process is, the smaller the chip can be, less heat dissipation, and the more efficient it can be, and the better overall it is. And 7 nanometer is obviously much smaller than 16. So before Bitcoin was on 28, and before that it was on 42, and before that it was like at 65, and before that it was like at 142, and so on. And each generation it gets much more and more faster as you use like a smaller process to do it. Will it shift it? It depends. I mean, I know for a fact that Bitmain is working on 7 nanometer, right? Like they have amazing chip designers. This is why they have like such a huge lead in ASIC manufacturing. And Alex Petrov actually commented during the mining panel that even if Intel or one of these like giant chip manufacturers came into the Bitcoin mining space, it would take them about a year to catch up to all the different techniques that these mining manufacturers have found. And it's not just a matter of, oh, okay, well, we'll make them too. There are certain things about mining manufacturing that you have to know, especially like the components that you use, and like the chips and how you sort of power them and things like that aren't obvious. And maybe you can hire somebody away from Bitmain and gain some of those trade secrets or whatever, but oftentimes these things are encumbered by patents. And this is why in chip design you have to be very, very careful, and it's very hard to manufacture your own stuff that's comparable without violating some of this, and you have to be really clever, and this is why it costs so much. But yeah, I mean, it may shift the power of ASIC mining away from Bitmain, but it may not, because very, very frankly speaking, Bitmain has a huge lead, right? Like they have a lot of really good relationships, and they've figured out this whole manufacturing miners thing, especially with respect to the chips. And the chips are clearly the most important part of mining equipment. So, yeah, great question, VC. All right, let's keep going up. Yes, the bad virus. Hey, Jimmy, isn't the term altcoin now an unfashionable term used by 2013 Bitcoin maximalists, or do you still think the term still has objective credibility? I use it because that's just my perspective. Bitcoin versus altcoin. Bitcoin is the main coin. Altcoin are other coins. It's just a useful way to group everything else other than Bitcoin. I mean, you may object to it as sort of a pejorative term. I personally don't see it as a pejorative term. I think it's just sort of a useful distinction because Bitcoin came first. It's kind of like saying initial, or like initial part of the series, that's like the first one, and subsequent things of a series, well, that's everything else. And that's perfectly legitimate as a use of the English language. And I think that's fine. Bitcoin is the one that came first. Altcoins are everything that came after. I think that's perfectly useful, especially since we know where a lot of the innovation happened is on the first one, right? Like, I mean, you can talk about the initial issue of Spider-Man versus subsequent issues of Spider-Man. Like, what's the distinction there? Well, that could be useful. But I think I don't see it as a pejorative term. I think some other people may, because they're part of the many coins and altcoins. So I don't know. All right. Let's look at some other questions, and then we will get wrapping up in about 15 minutes. So, are you in the bathroom? That's not right. No, I am in a hotel room, and I am in New York City because I have some clients here, and I'm I had to meet them, so I'm not at home in Austin. I'm not in Paris, so I'm sort of in between. All right, question. When do you expect the S-curve of user adoption? What conditions must be met before you expect the S-curve? How will you know it is here when it arrives? Great question. Unfortunately, I don't really know. I think when you start seeing most people will sort of getting Bitcoin, not just asking about it. I think that's when you'll see, when the sweet part of the S curve is going up. I mean, it's kind of like any technology. I don't remember if you were there in like 99, 2000. That's at least for me when I started to see that. 1 year it was like less than half my friends had a cell phone. The next year it was most of my friends had a cell phone, and that's the sweet part of the S curve, the steep rise there. Um, and I imagine Bitcoin will be the same way. At one point, it'll be a minority of your friends, and then at another point it'll be a majority of your friends, because that's sort of how S curves go. I don't think we're anywhere near that, so I don't imagine that to be the case. Sorry about the light there. Um, but yeah, it's that's how I would think of it. What other alts will atomic swaps include? Do you think that is a way of making cryptos more decentralized? Well, in order to do atomic swaps, at least over Lightning, you need to support SegWit on your altcoin. So the only ones that do, I think, are Litecoin and a few other ones. I can't remember which ones they are, but you can do atomic swaps there. Do you think that is a way of making cryptos more decentralized? I don't think so. I think they're orthogonal concepts. Can fungibility be attained with atomic swaps and using a different blockchain like Litecoin? Would privacy be better implemented on a Bitcoin sidechain? Yeah, privacy absolutely would be better implemented on a Bitcoin sidechain. That's kind of what Mimblewimble is about, and that's that would allow a lot more privacy. Right now, what a lot of people do is they transfer to Monero, do a couple transactions on Monero, and then transfer back to Bitcoin, and that's not a bad way to do it. But using a side chain, you're not subject to slippage or whatever. So that might be a way to do it, especially if there's something like Mimblewimble and cut throughs and things like that. I haven't really written any articles on Mimblewimble, but that might be something to talk about in another episode. Do you think all investment in mining, ASICs, wallets, channels, etc., give Bitcoin intrinsic value, or can all that stuff ultimately be used to proliferate another coin that could replace Bitcoin? Um, I mean, hard question. I guess what you're talking about is most of that stuff can be reused for something like Bitcoin Cash, for example, right now. But you still need to change off some stuff. Uh, yeah, I mean, it could be used right now. It would be pretty hard though. It would have to be almost exactly Bitcoin. So in which case it would be Bitcoin. If it was widely used, some separation between Bitcoin and this hypothetical coin would be required. All right. Yeah, I already looked at that one. All right. Yeah, it looks like we're sort of running out of questions, so I think this might be a good time. Yeah, I would love to talk more about different things on the next episode. I would love to hear from you on Twitter about what sort of guests I can have next. I did ask Dead on Nix. He's the main developer for Bitcoin ABC, if he'd want to be on my show at some point. I also thought Eric Vosko was very interesting with his views, and I would love to have him on my show at some point. And I think he's open to it as well. Yeah, and obviously there are lots of other people that I am going to have on in the future. And check out the Pinkcoin fundraiser. I would love to see other um, you know coins try to beat them. And I promise I'll be nice. Well, I don't know, maybe I won't be nice, depending on which coin wins. I'll definitely ask questions about your coin and say, all right, what's your value proposition? Honestly, I haven't read the white paper on most of these coins, so that's going to factor in. And if they're on the show, and I probably won't know that much about it, I'll ask them about it. But yeah, thank you for joining me tonight. It was a good show. I enjoyed your questions, and I wanted to have a good sign off. And somebody suggested this, so I am going to go with it. The song is done.